video.
Availability of fresh water determines the future of nations. Every part of the world has specific issues limiting the access to safe water. Advanced research is essential to ensure water security. Born out of this need is the International Center for Clean Water, ICCW. ICCW is a place to ideate, nurture, and translate disruptive technologies for sustainable clean water. The sprawling 21,000 square feet facility is located at the IIT Madras Research Park and is the brainchild of Professor T. Pradeep of IIT Madras, a Padma Shri 2020 awardee by the Government of India. With over a decade of proven experience in tackling water contamination issues with homegrown nanomaterials, the need for a comprehensive center for water that caters to the world was visualized. With initial funding and support provided by H.T. Parekh Foundation, the center was inaugurated on April 22, 2019. ICCW will help anyone to translate a worthy idea on clean water to a viable technology. The incubation ecosystem of IITM will work in tandem with the intellectual and material resources of the institution to enable this translation. ICCW has highly trained and talented people, houses some of the world's most sophisticated and modern equipment, and is open to stakeholders from all over the world. ICCW has 7 state-of-the-art laboratories, an incubation hub for startups, a pilot production facility, and access to expertise of the ICCW faculty and our worldwide collaborators. Companies in the water sector are invited to join our consortium for speedy product development and technology validation. IP sharing and startup support is also available. ICCW consults on water management studies and implements water-saving solutions in partnership with emerging and eco-friendly technologies. Solutions are available for fluoride, arsenic, and iron removal, TDS reduction, and atmospheric water harvesting. ICCW implements these technologies through CSR funds with a 5-year maintenance option. It conducts workshops and interactive sessions involving all stakeholders on topics of relevance to clean water, such as RO reject management, rainwater harvesting, grey water management, low-cost sensors, etc. ICCW works as a medium to link clean water research to the global community. ICCW is a non-profit entity registered as a society under the governance of IIT Madras. It exists to serve the world and its inhabitants. It needs the participation of corporate houses and philanthropic organizations in projects that will make the world water secure. Contributions can be made through IIT Madras, which come with a 100% tax exemption. These contributions will make a lasting impact on the society.
Thank you. Thank you, Pallavi. So we are good to go. We are at exactly 6:03 now. If you may allow, I would like to formally start this interactive session, informal session. Formally start the informal session. If you may, would like to word it like this. So I am Sripati. I am part of ICCW, International Center for Clean Water. I am expert engineer at this center, which is an initiative of IIT Madras, and is located at the IIT Madras Research Park in Taramani, Chennai. We have been conducting several water talks, and this has been a great journey so far, and we are going to come with a compendium or a coffee table book of all the experts of what they have delivered and what they have shared with us on several perspectives of water, wastewater, sanitation, hygiene, and many more on policies, on governance, on lakes, on conservation of lakes, rivers. Within this 10 talks itself, imagine we have heard so much from such experts. And it is not that it is once they deliver the talk, it is going to end. We are trying to reconnect with each of these aspects that they have shared with us, and we're trying to do something to the society. To something to society, I would say that we are trying to put our efforts in the right direction, along with the guidance of the experts and with Professor Pradeep, guiding us on every moment, and Mr. Nandakumar, who's our CEO, who's also a part of this call. They both are helping us to achieve certain things that we are trying to do. So in this regard, in this series of water talks, we are having the pleasure of Dr. Hariharan Chandra. I don't want to give a big introduction, but nevertheless, to start this interactive session, he's been a green builder, as I know him from past 10 years or 15 years. And we have been interacting on many platforms in the past, and we have, in fact, I have learned a lot from him on many aspects of what is green building all about, and probably on the urban context on water, wastewater, urban planning. So recently we came across, and we started sharing thoughts and said, why don't we do a water talk, which is a part of our series of events. And this has been a good starting point once again, sir, with you in terms of what we have been doing together and what we will be doing together now from this moment onwards on many aspects. That day you were saying, let us keep, the talk short so that we do something. You said we should not keep on discussing. We should get into action. I think the title that you have chosen and you're going to talk about is action in the urban context. So with no time, wasted now, I would request you to, sir, to share your perspectives. And of course, this should be very, very informal. If, people who have been given a, control to talk about, they can surely be given a control to say something about what they would think about this, probably not to disturb the speaker, but at least say around 25 to 30 minutes later on, you can post your questions. You can put it in a chat box. I will try and moderate it as much as possible so that Dr. Hariharan is able to give you all the clarifications that you want from him during his speech. Over to you, Dr. Hariharan. Thanks for picking up.
Thank you, Sripati. Thank you, Mr. Shivkumar, Dr. Pradeep, and others at ICCW. First, let me confess that, like he said, this is not any lecture. I don't think we need lectures. You're all discerning minds. You're all professionals. You're all people who are as equally, deeply invested in the purpose. This is a meeting where we are preaching, in a sense, to the choir. We are not talking to people who actually need to do it. So there is an us and a them in a certain sense, and all of us here are that us. Else you will not be here. On an evening like this, heading toward the weekend, I don't see why you should be here listening to somebody at all. For me, I must also confess one more thing. At the end of this, please do not be disappointed if I have not offered any solutions. I have no solutions to offer, by the way. I have some reflections. I have a cumulative sense, shall we say, of what we all ought to be doing. I've been deeply, despondent in some ways from about 1990 or so at how things that are so under our nose and so obvious to us is not understood by a whole lot of other people that we interact with in daily life. It could be that next door person in the apartment that you live in, or a colleague who works at another desk in your office, if you're still working from an office in these COVID times. I don't want to go into all the bad news. We all know what the bad news is about. I remember I used to run a magazine called Crossover. It is a monthly kind of a magazine. For about 12 or 13 years, I ran that. And at some point in time, maybe 5-6 years after, around 2004 or so, somebody said, hey, why are you carrying all this bad news? Tell me about what I can do. And I changed the very content. and went into things that, looked at that point of time as isolated, but inspiring examples of people who are doing things. Many of you will agree with me if I were to say that there is somebody who will win a Nobel Prize if he knows how to break or crack this challenge of engineering socially acceptance for these solutions that we need in the marketplace or in our homes and apartments and buildings of various kinds for water or for energy or for waste management or for air management. That is, if the consumer understands this, we don't need to worry about solutions. And there are solutions, obvious to all of us. There are multiple sets of solutions, especially in, I would say, the last, say, 6-7 years from about 2014. Tremendous disruptions have happened in terms of cost as well as in technology terms that have made solutions possible. People like Sripati, for instance, 2007, that makes it 14 years now. We have been in the other forum called the Indian Green Building Council, which is a B2B forum. It's an industry forum. I mean, all of us are industry members there. I mean, you are builders, you are solution providers, you are green consultants, you are whatever you are, service consultants, and so on. The thing is that somewhere in all these things, this chasm between what is needed by people and what is wanted by people has to be broken by somebody somewhere. And that is the central pitch of all that I'm going to speak about today. Yes, there is a methodology that we have evolved of bringing public engagement with citizen action. And that is also something that I want to leave as a set of thoughts with you all at the end of this. And if that change has to happen, when I say change, I suddenly remember what Gandhiji said. Be the change. I don't know if he said this, because Ramchandra Guha, that historian, says it was not him who said it. He was only, sort of paraphrasing somebody else at that point in time. But if you are to talk about being the change that you want to make happen, it means that we have to be ourselves like that. And I can tell you, touch my heart, I'll tell you that, I drive a car. I sometimes use an air conditioner. I do all the things that a lifestyle individual, urban citizen does. And therefore, sometimes I think that I have lost the moral right to be able to talk about, having other people conserve water or energy. So what happens to this, and this is critical for you all to think about, is that this issue is not about austerity. In current times today, if I were to, interpret many of those fathers of thinking of the last century, from Aldo Leopold to people like, Quevedo, for instance, and then many others like that, up until, let us say, Alvin Toffler and Paul Hawken and all that, what essentially emerges from everything that they said is, we don't want you to do very much to change what you do. That is, we don't want you to, switch lights off like our grandmothers told us, or bring austerity in our lives. But if there are ways that you can simply listen to solutions that are already available and bring them into life, into your own life and being, things will happen. There is another person, Gaurang Das Prabhu of ISKCON, and you must YouTube him to check some of his very inspiring sessions that he has, sometimes 15, 20 minutes, sometimes more. And there was one meeting we were having maybe a month ago. It was a meeting of either Naredko or Kradai, and we had called Gaurang Prabhuji also to that meeting. And at some point I asked him, I said, Prabhuji, tell me what you think we should be doing to bring change. He said only one thing, and he didn't even bat an eyelid. He said, if you don't practice it, you can't preach it. And I think it's true of a lot of us. And you know why I'm saying that, and I don't want to say more. I want you to think about this. I want you to share your thoughts with me at the end of this, or with all of us. This organization, when we started WOW, well, this is November, about this point of time last year, the idea germinated. I had already, between April 8th, about 3-4 weeks after COVID broke out in India, I had started this first online thing, and we called it the Living Building Series. I was doing it under something else called the Prem Jain Memorial Trust, which is another foundation that has been set up in memory of Dr. Prem Jain, the father of the former chairperson of Indian Green Building Council. And from there on till about November, I must have done about 40 or 45 such online sessions, hour and a half or so, interactions, much like what we are doing today, but they were webinars. Somebody would speak for so much time, show a presentation, and then see if we can have some interactions. At that point in time, there was somebody very close to me, a well-wisher, who said, look, you're doing all these things, you're holding these webinars. People go away, they come and or maybe write to you later and say, well, it was inspiring, interesting. But what have you got has changed that you have managed to make happen? It set us thinking, and not just me, some one or two others. And over the next, say, 4 or 5 weeks, I said to myself, there must be a forum that we start, which must be a meeting. Like our Sripati said, this is a very informal meeting. This is a meeting where we share some thoughts. Well, I had the privilege today, and you'll indulge me, of being the first speaker in all these things. And then, of course, you'll all speak and I will listen to you. I said to myself that we must have a forum of this kind where everybody shares thinking. At the end of a meeting, we do not end that meeting without a set of action propositions that we make. Take those action propositions back to a smaller group of people who know how to address it, either as solution seekers, that is as citizens, as bulk water users and so on, or as solution providers. What happened as we went along this journey, shall we say, starting January 9th, when we had our first, it was a Saturday, we chose to have it that day. January 2nd was too crowded, so we said we'll start January 9th. What happened is the initial, shall we say, enthusiasm and drive was led by a lot of solution providers who came on like you would do. See, what happens in all these things is there is a community, there is an affinity of values that happens. And in that affinity, naturally, you'll have only those people who are interested in that particular subject. We could have been chemists, we could have been, doing something else, we could have been jewelers. But, if we have people in the sustainability domain, what happens is we draw only people of a certain kind. And that happened at that point of time for us in January. 25 or 23 weeks later, we are ending the year now, another month, with only 2 more sessions of the WOW Action Forum. We realized that the connect is very difficult to achieve, and that is part of the story today. That connect between what is in it for me if I'm a viewer, what can happen after such a meeting in a way that we are able to galvanize action. These are 2 things that we were left with. Now I'll request, I hate PowerPoints without power, as I keep saying, they never carry any power. But I thought I will try and see if I can show you a few picture suggestions of the thought lines that I'd like to share and pursue with you as we go along. Well, if you don't mind, if you can put up that, it will help me, And while she does that, remember this other thing. Every organization most of you belong to as industry leaders and professionals, it's either a B2B or it's a consumer organization which is militant, trying to tell, and takes positions where it wants to tell industry, this is not what we want from you. There is no organization which connects industry to consumers or business to consumers. That is, if there is this, this bridge that we can have between providers of solutions and seekers of solutions, it makes life easy, I think, for those who want to seek such solutions into the future, especially in a domain where it's so difficult to understand. Anything that you do here today in water management or in energy management, even if it has been done for the last 15 years, people think this is new. I don't want you to experiment at my cost, the customer says. If it is a new product, people think, well, in how many other places have you done this? How can I be sure that this will work? People are asking this question after 15 years of such implementation. I must admit that, even if it's been done for 15 years and people like Sripati are leaders who understand that, what has happened is that it's been done, I would say, in about 4 to 5% of all buildings in the country today. Let's take just that one example of the Indian Green Building Council. It has today a very impressive figure of about 7.6 billion square feet, 7,600 million square feet of certified buildings. But what is that figure in terms of the total building inventory in India? That figure of building stock in India is lying at some 180 billion square feet. We are not even 4%. We are under 5% anyway. So the point is that even if you have proven many of these things, people are not willing to accept it in the mainstream. So in a sense, this is about mainstreaming sustainability. Even today, very sad. I wrote this phrase in 94, I think, as the what is it called, the tagline or the mission line for BCIL, a company that I started at that point in time and that I exited from in 2016 or so. And so I used to be a green builder, as Sripati was saying. See, the target is you and I. We are what? About 1/3 of every city in India. If I were to take the, let's say, the top 20 cities in India, and if I were to take the first, say, 3, 4, 5 cities to be over 10 million, I think Chennai has also crossed the 10 million population level. So we are the first 6 cities, and then we have another, say, 4, 5 cities like Pune and others who are in that middling range between 6 and 10 million square feet. Of this, only 1/3 of us are lifestyle people like us. And this 1/3 consumes about 200 liters of water. I have a challenge there, therefore. The other 1/3 who live in slums consume no more than about 40 LPCD. Just 40 LPCD to 50. In Bangalore, at least it's 40. I don't know about the cities that you come from, each of you. And the other 1/3 are people who are the LIG segment, the lower middle class segment. And typically, they never consume anything over, say, 80 to 100 LPCD. So the big bad boys are us, the people in the middle class or the upper middle class, apartment dwellers and people like us who are spending about 200 LPCD. Now, you might turn around and say Kabul gets a supply of water just 30 LPCD. Dhaka gets about 40 LPCD. Can you imagine their story? So they are obviously depending upon bore wells or whatever else as independent water supply networks for them to sustain themselves. And Dhaka is a very large city. It's again closer to the 20 million mark. Very soon they're going to be crossing that as a mega city. Keep this in mind that this 1/3 is the one that can lead any such intervention, market intervention that can bring the big change in the other 2 1/3 segments. In any city, your city will be no exception to these numbers. You will see that about 80% of your water consumption of the city will be residential. Industrial water consumption comes in another segment, but it will not. For instance, I take this city, we have 55,000 crore liters in Bangalore. 55,000 crore liters is the residential water consumption. And I'll talk about it a little there. In some slides you will see if you have questions on how I arrived at this number. Out of a total of 72 to 73,000 crore liters in a year, we are 200 crore liters per day. You multiply that by 365, you know where we are. And each of your cities, given what your population is, if you are, let us say, 1 crore, 10 million, that is, if you're 1 crore, multiply that by, say, 150 liters, and that will be the supply of water in your city. Although your LPCD at the higher 1/3 level of the middle and upper middle class, you will be at 200 LPCD. So how do we address this is one of the questions that you and I need to ask, but critically in a way that we do not expect the government to do anything. We must tell ourselves this is not something as an intervention that should come from the government, and this should be something we, you and I, in our homes, in our families, with our wives and children and everybody else, must be able to take with the support of water solutions that are already available in the marketplace and at prices, especially in the last, say, 3 years, at prices that will win you back the money in less than 30 months, in 35 months. People like Suresh Pai who are here will prove it for you. They have already done this, in their apartments, and they know what that means to them. I'm saying simple things which are, completely in your hands, like say an IoT meter at about 10,000 rupees, or could be something like, let's say your aerators and fixtures like that at 2,000 rupees to an entire house, 3 or 4 bedrooms. I'm saying you can fix them at about 2,000 rupees. Do these things and then see what you can do at the community level. You step out of your apartment into the corridor, knock at the other guy's door and tell him, there's a dire crisis in water. You and I need to do something about it. He looks at you strangely and says, there's something wrong with this guy, right? This is the challenge that we need to move and see how we can act upon. Go on, Pallavi. Give them a very quick sense, if you don't mind, as we move to the next and whatever else. I could have done this. I read somewhere. I said I must put this up, and I think this is what you and I are doing. All of us are doing. We know. See, you could have said impossible there, but I believe that all of this, and you believe all of this, is extremely within the realms of possibility. Go on, please. Quickly, Ma. Let's move. Where are you, Pallavi? Yeah. You know this. I mean, the OED, the Oxford English Dictionary, was the only dictionary in the world in 1991. Random House didn't have it. Cambridge didn't have the word sustainability. I was founding in 1991 a trust called the Academy for Mountain Environics. And at the time, I looked for the word environics, and I didn't find, only OED had that word, environics, at that point in time. Nobody else had. That is, this whole dialogue on things like sustainability have been born only from about 1990. It moved first into universities naturally and among researchers and so on. It took another 10, 15 years. For instance, although the US GDC was born in 1987, in India, we saw 2002, we saw the IGBC, we saw Bureau of Energy Efficiency coming up as late as say 2007 or 8. Industry was still not waking up to these things. To get signatories to SDG, even this year, 5-6 months ago, it took us 3 months to get 250 companies to sign up, listed companies to sign up. So I'm saying that there is still reluctance to understand what these things mean. We read in newspapers about wonderful things like COP26 and so on, but at the ground level, at the last mile, we are still not doing things. These are things that I talked about earlier. Farming is still a serious challenge. I was talking to Mr. Nandakumar, who was making a trip to Coimbatore the other day, maybe a month ago. He was wanting to see if ICCW can adopt some 2 or 3 villages. And I asked him, why are you going there? And he said, well, we are trying to see if we can provide drinking water because, to that village and the households there, because the quantum of fertilizer and pesticide that has poisoned the soils has made it non-potable, right? So this poisoning has gone on from 1967. You know the story. I don't have to tell you what happened then. We are not listening. A businessman will sell what you want to buy. He's not interested in anything else. Is sustainability, Mohammed Ashraf asks, an overrated word? It is. And, in many of the things that I speak about, I don't even use the word sustainability. I stopped using the word green and green buildings and so on. At the end of, sometimes there's somebody who came to me a month ago and who said, I want to write a thesis on something, sir. She's a postmaster student doing a doctoral thesis in Monash University in Melbourne. I said, if you can write that paper, whatever your thesis is, without using the word sustainability, without using the word green, then you have made it happen. So she said, where do I go? So I said, look at what you can do with the economic angle of it. There is incidentally in Melbourne, an economic ecological institute. Interesting that, every speak that we have today has to connect to the bottom line on numbers. And then of course, on the feasibility of execution, numbers meaning as amounts and finances and so on. Go on, Pallavi, yeah. See this, in 1901, Quevedo writes, we need a nationwide law to protect and replenish Mexico's fast depleting forests. You're saying this in Paris somewhere at a conference. Amazing guy. I'd like you to read this guy. You need to Google him and check him out. He's also been written by that other environment historian, Ramchandra Guha writes about him somewhere. And look at this, just now, 20 years ago, if I am today 20, 18, 19, 20, whatever, I was born in say 2000 or 2002, and if I read this, I'm going to tell myself, what on earth has my grandfather done? What on earth has my father done? And after just these 20 years, we are still not waking up to this challenge. Go on, please. And look at what 2 other people said. Water use, this is a UN report, Jeet Kumar Gupta, who is chairperson, a wonderful man, an urban planner from Chandigarh. I'm sure he's here in this meeting today because I know he signed in. Water use has been increasing worldwide by 1% from 1980s. Can you imagine that? Take a cumulative on that. 1% cumulative today will be about 60 to 70% on that number of 1980 of water consumption. What are we doing to ourselves? We were in 1947, 300 million. By 1986 or so, there is that famous Ma dialogue of Amitabh Bachchan and Shashi Kapoor. He talks about 65 crore, 650 million. Today we are 1,300 million. 1947, 1986, 2011. Clear 4-time kind of jump. We have gone there. We just don't have it. No government can help you. There is no water available. It's a finite source. No one's willing to listen. And look at that one. 600% in 50 years, he says. Go on, please. Gandhi writes, amazing, absolutely amazing. He says, the dependence of the of the industrial city on fossil fuels and the tremendous pollution this engenders has led towards what he beautifully called Carboniferous Capitalism. 1934, he's writing this. Carboniferous Capitalism, Gandhi writing in 1934. I couldn't believe it when I first saw it in 1986 or something like this. I was reading Pyare Lal, one of the guys who, the biographer of Gandhi. And I suddenly said to myself, good Lord, how is he connecting? Where is carbon and cities? And it was a real true eye-opener for me. And there are these guys also. This other guy, this Dion Lomberg, he's lost now. I don't know what happened to him. You know, you must look up those two books. I mean, they must be available for you to download or to buy on Kindle and such. And that minister, I couldn't take his name. He's from India. And can you have statements like that? Paul Hawken writes, interestingly, that all governments across the world are like this only, as they will say. Go on, please. There is a reason I am talking this. I am not still telling you what we are doing. I'm not going into action. I want you to think about these things. And I want, of course, if there are things that you put up here, I'm willing to respond to that. See, this is one of our challenges. Engineers, for instance, in 1928, 1925, decided long distance water, you know, even before, I mean, Visvesvaraya and others tried these things here in the Western world, especially in the United States, when the Hoover Dam came and after. The whole idea was to bring pristine waters from forests to cities to see that we are fed with water here. And so cities became parasitic. Today, in your city, my city, any city, 80%, why 80%? All of the natural resources, anything that you buy, from the clothes that you wear, to food, to everything else, comes from that 90% of the hinterland, right? You have 3% of the country in terms of landmass. We are no more than 140,000 square kilometers in a country which is 3.3 million square kilometers. And we take away 80% of those natural resources to feed these cities. Where are we going? Yeah, go on, please. Yeah, so we can't think the way they did. For example, to take that Einsteinian thought, if I were to say, yeah, they thought about long distance water because it seemed possible at the time, population levels were much less and it was sustainable for them to do it. But today, with technology having advanced, especially with genetic sciences and so on, to a point where you have disrupted the cost of treatment of wastewater to that level of hygienic, high-grade, health-grade water that you can drink, like Singapore has proven and China has done to about 60% of its cities. You must think of doing that. You have to go away from that traditional box of having to get water supply from elsewhere. Water is what you have got here. There's only one thing. There's water. There's no wastewater, black water, gray water, and other types of water. There's only one type of water. Should we do that, as our Sripati is saying? Go to the next slide. They would have read this. Look at that. India, all three have the same population. I'll stop here. I want to see if anyone wants to speak. I mean, you just unmute and speak, please, whoever. You know, I'll come to the methodology of these things a couple of slides after, a few slides after. Anyone who wants to speak at this point in time? 6:30.
Can they speak by just unmuting and?
Yeah, sure.
Can they do that? Because
yes.
Yes, sir.
Well, so our principal problem is the way we have defined development. Development is consumption, increasing consumption, increased development, energy, water, whatever, petroleum or anything else. So this concept of development has, for example, in the context of soap and detergents, you say, hey, how much is the lather that you have, lathering fraction, and how thick the lather that you can develop is defining the quality of soap. And this one can go on and extending this particular thing to every product that we may have. That is, of course, related to production mechanisms, our raw material processes, innate and all. So everything is coupled. So you can't be, or we can't be talking about water in isolation, as you would obviously agree, and it is all pointing towards that. Although water is an indicator.
Sure.
And so when you talked about right from the beginning, the citizens' action, that action, like Gandhi said, you don't have to, the empire need not be defeated on everything. You can start from salt, or you can start from cotton. So we need to probably identify those tiny steps that each one can do. Thank you. I'll stop here.
Fair enough. Anyone else, please, who wants to see that? Like the Dandi March, some very symbolic yet extremely powerful message we need to have, I suppose. I mean, Gandhi could have taken a bus and he would have been there in 2 hours, but he decided he will walk only 6 kilometers, and it took 30 days in order to see that the world will watch him. So we need to, position, we need communications of a certain kind.
Arian, I can put a word?
Yes, please. Yes, Sam. I can hear you. Sam Papu is from Chicago. Good morning, Sam, to you.
Good morning. Yeah, now there is no word like wastewater. Even in USA, we use it like water reclamation. You know that I work for I'm sitting from the world's biggest wastewater plant now.
Right.
And Chicago area, we call it as our agency as Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago. We never say that it's a wastewater cleaning plant. Okay, so the wastewater in the universe itself, like there is no wastewater because the water is recycled automatically by the nature itself, which we are cutting down that cycle. We are taking the fresh water, we are making it wastewater, but we are never cleaning it. That is the main problem. And thanks for it.
Fair enough. Good point there. Let's move on. We'll take a couple of more slides and we'll move into the process that we have taken so that we have more cities take to this. To me, my interest in this evening's discussion is how can we have more cities, more leaders from among you here who can take to this purpose and galvanize it in your own cities with support, with help that we can provide you. People like Sripati, leaders like, all of us are here to see what we can do to bring that support. Go on, Pallavi, move this. This is, we skipped. Let's move a few. This is it. I want you to go to the children thing. Look at that. When I hear anything from elsewhere, from Canada, Europe, media messages to social media, to whatever else, I tell myself, they have got no children there. It's all here, 500 million between just India and China. And look at that thing called, blessed thing called Africa. We say Africa, everything is anonymous there. 54 countries. It's not a country. Africa is a continent, and Africa is got as many of these things, and yet we sort of, continue to think of Africa as one, one entity. So go on, please. The next, move on. Children, I believe that they can do it. I'll show you just 2 films eventually. Go on, please. Go on. Look at that. How we always come from constraints. And when you listen to these 2 kids now, one of them, one young girl, phenomenal girl. She's no more than 13 years or something. This was recorded about 6 months ago. So the next one, please. And there you are. This is a challenge. I put this up because this has been something that has been also sort of like our Dr. Pradeep said just now. We need symbolic things, but we know the numbers of asteroids that threaten to hit the Earth every day, right? Any scientist here will understand the numbers of the phenomenal risk that the planet runs every day. But we don't do anything about it. Many of us don't even know about it. And yet there is so much money that is spent, few billions of dollars that are spent in order to see that we mitigate this crisis for humanity, right? Now, why won't we think like that for, say, water? When we can spend, let us say, 14,000 crores in a state like Karnataka for a new project to bring long distance water from another place, which is 80 kilometers away from here, why would I not spend, let's say, a 10th of that, a 20th of that to see that I'm bringing awareness? Sydney did that, 2010 or between 2010 and 14, and they saw a very tangible drop in the consumption of water by people and therefore supply of water to the city. Go on, please. And this girl, listen to her if you play that. It's no more than 60 seconds.
I would tell them about, first I would tell them about.
The question to her was, if you are asked to convince people as to why you should do something about water conservation, what would you do? Go on, please.
First, I would tell them about the crisis definitely, because most of them know about it, but some of them don't. But some of them know about it, but they don't want to do anything about it. So first, you have to tell them that. Then I would convince them to start telling other apartments to use aerators because it's needed to save water.
And she went on to say eventually that, I will tell them that by 2030, there is a dire crisis on water. And then we continued the conversation. But the point is, and go on next, Pallavi, we'll get to the part two of it all.
Tell them about the
No, part two. Next slide, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, look at this boy. Interesting. This boy's response too. Go on, please.
if it was a simple way, you could take the example if, let's say, today we start, like every citizen of India starts saving 1 liter. By the end of the day, we're saving almost 130 crore liters. So if you think of it in that perspective, if just one person saves the water, it's not going to make such a big difference. But if everybody chip in, it's going to make a big difference.
This boy is 11 years old, and studies in some school. And we got him to talk to the forum one of these days. Go on, please. Next slide. Go on. Skip. We know all this. We'll skip this. Like Dr. Pradeep said, we have to go beyond that. Skip this. We'll get there. And now, next one. See, right or wrong, and from here I have probably 8 or 9 slides now, and therefore about 7-8 minutes. Go on, please. Why would the West be doing this when 500 million people, okay, 250 million people, 260 odd million children, live here in India? Why is it that we are not able to get children to sort of be galvanized into acting? Why is it that as leaders, all of us who are in institutions of the kind that we represent are not able to get kids to do on social media? Today it's virtual walk on the streets. We don't have to do physical demonstrations of this kind. I put this up because this is Canadian, this is from Montreal, but my point is that we need more of these at the virtual levels, especially post-COVID, not happening. How do we get our children to do it? And I think it's our responsibility, or at least we must have the ability in us to see how we can drive such energies of children. Go on, please. Go on. Yeah, there. Look at that. 1,100 liters there. Kabul is 30 liters, yeah, go on, please. In Bombay, we pay 40 liters per 1,000 liters. 40 rupees per 1,000 liters. We all have the same problem. You could be in Chicago, you could be in Montreal, you could be here in India, in any city. We all have leakages. The chief minister here, the former chief minister, maybe 3 months ago, the guy was saying, we have got 40%, I give you a target, I want it to be reduced to 20%. 1 week prior to that, I was reading a Montreal report, and it was talking about how they were losing this kind of thing. So look at that, you can see on the right side, as a background, you see reduce water wastage to 20%, says whatever the chief minister here in Karnataka. Go on, please. So the problem is the same everywhere. We have either inundation threats or we have this, and we have electricity bills of the same, big electricity bills. Sam Papu talked just now. I know what his bill is at the Chicago Metro if he's going to be treating 55 billion liters of water every day. The question is, therefore, not the technological marvel that he represents or his organization represents. The question is, why are you supplying 1,000 liters per person in Chicago or in Montreal? And why this disparity? How is it that we can consider, like they say about the butterfly that flutters in some forest in South America can bring you an impact elsewhere in Indonesia. Today it's become one world. How do we get everybody to start conserving elsewhere in the interest of the South? The North has to do what it has to do. How do we get something like that galvanized? Is beyond our ability, collective ability, I'll say. Go on, please. This is the same. This is in every city across the world. Aging is the problem. 1929, 30s when water infrastructure was laid in most parts of the central parts of the city. Bombay, for instance, is a classic example. 1914 to 1990, during the war, it's been said interestingly in Bombay. In Bangalore, it was all 1928 to 1930. And everything is bursting at the seams, of course. Yeah, go on, please. And we don't have the money to invest. It's like railways and the inventory that we carry. We can't add to it. India has not added after 1947 any more than, say, 20% of feedstock to the railways, to the entire bunch of railway lines that we have. Think about that. And look at this. Both of them have the rich world, the poor world. All of them have the same goals. You know, they're not getting there. So what can we do? Go away from governments. Go away from authorities, you know, the water authorities, especially in countries like ours, where we have no governance. You know, you had recently you all heard about Bhubaneswar, you heard about Puri getting tap water, I mean, you know, fresh water without RO systems in your house, right at your tap. I think that's not the way to go. The governments will want you to do that because of their wonderful hunger for public expenditure. I call it the brutality of public expenditure. They want thousands of crores to be spent. They don't want to spend 20 crores to see if they can bring about demand-side management. Nobody in the government wants to talk demand-side management. This is something I want to ask some of you here. If you can do something about it at levels like the Citizen Action Forums on demand side, without it, because here you don't have to spend money. Here you have to only try and see how you can galvanize behavior. Go on, please. Well, point of views. Look at this. At the end of it, I ask, and all of this, you know, every one of our homes is a mini water utility. I was talking to one of these people from ADB, and the man says, only in India I see this. I know you know that there are a few other countries that we have these mini water utilities. You go to smaller towns, you know, across, for instance, from Guangdong, if you're riding to, say, Shanghai, it's an 850 mile ride. There are smaller towns there. Homes don't have pumps and overhead tanks and nothing. They get water, that's it, period, you know. Then they have other challenges of having to get the right quality of water. Is the water right? And so what do I do at the point of use and so on. But the point is, they are not mini water utilities like we are not in our country. Your apartment, your individual homes, everything is a mini water utility. What a waste of, you know, infrastructure money, whether you spend it or the government spends. Go on, please. How do we change that? This is something I told you about. I'm going to skip this, right? Skip this. Go on. Go on, please. Next. This is what we are doing. We take simple things. You know, that first thing that you read here, I don't know how long back this was, must have been, okay, that's in April. We said there are 3 laws in the city. We invited all WOW leaders here. Many of the WOW members are here present, I think, at least a few of them. And we said, now, how do we get people to just be in full compliance of the law for rainwater harvest, for meters, for instance, or for STPs? Every law in this city, in Bangalore, has been flouted. The rule is you don't do it. 80% of the STP systems that have been set up are undersized. And nearly all of them don't work, nearly all of them. And why were they set up? Because somebody would not give me the NOC if I was a builder, and not for any other reason. Maintenance is a problem, whether it's in the government or here. Only 10% of water in Bangalore is treated as a basic STP compliant before they're put into lakes. And you know what people have written about, even in the 1930s, people like Patrick Geddes, for instance, who died in 1932, who spent something like 12 years in India. He's a man who was the urban planner for cities like Banaras and Baroda and Tanjore, you know, I mean, many of the 7 cities he built in India. And he says somewhere that, you know, you need to protect your lakes to something else if you want, you know, disconnect with rural and I mean, the countryside and the city and so on. So go on, please. The next one. So we talk every time we take a theme, we talk about it. Every time we end up, you know, making notes on what we can push after that. I must confess that we have not been entirely successful, but what we have managed with about 23 such meetings, plus another 5, 6, about 30 meetings so far, which means approximately every fortnight we have one meeting or the other. We have these action groups that meet again separately, and they have about 8 to 10 members who then take from this. You see, the one difference we tried to make, and I'm seeking your ideas also at the end of it, another 3-4 minutes, is that we said we will set a target. We'll see that we will measure and verify it in a way that whatever we are doing in terms of galvanizing citizen action must lead to a measured, verified saving of water. We are at about 400 crore liters now. This figure is a little dated, of people whose you know, water saving measures have been documented by us, and we know what are the solutions they put in place, what their original benchmark was of water consumption and what it is today, right? And that to me is the essence of wanting to see how we can galvanize action in a way that we have a target. From here, we took it as sub-targets. We said apartments group will do this, and many other groups like these that you see listed here. We said each of them will see how they can move into it. Schools, for instance, schools has been a non-starter for us because of this challenge of COVID and so on, because children are not still going to school. We're looking at other things, commercial building, hoteliers, for instance, 8,000, 9,000 liters is only per year is from just hoteliers, these little restaurants and such places. Each of them add up. If I consume only 10,000 liters a day, you multiply that, how many, lakhs of liters you have in a year. So we said we'll try and see how we can hit each of these targets, but with leaders, citizen leaders, who will chair the sessions and drive the action groups themselves. Go on, please. And then we have these. Look at these 7. 3, 4, 5, and down there are 2 more here. I don't know if I see it here. Anyway, my screen is sort of, yeah. See, these 5, and apart from these, we got 2 more. What we said is, this we have got a simple Google form we send out. If you are living in an apartment, we asked you for simple data. How many floors you got? What is the roof terrace area, for instance, and then with some very basic, very, very basic data that you can offer us in, say, 10, 12 minutes of, sitting on it, we are able to convert it into a solution dashboard, and it gives them it's a dashboard where it tells you, if you spend this much money on rainwater harvest, you can get this thing organized. See, many people don't know the basics. Go to the next slide. I'll show them that. You see this. Now, what we do, therefore, is we give them a basic idea of how much they're spending, what they're doing from. If you did rainwater harvesting, how much will you save? If it is STP that you put up, what you can save, what it will cost you also. We put that also at the end of this all, and send it to them at no cost. Yes, Sripati, you raised your hand.
No. If you have concluded the slides, I think can take in some questions. That's why I raised.
No, questions is one thing. Go back to the previous slide. I want them to know the touch points. Therefore, I'm done with this. We can let them speak. We try to see, how do you take behavior change? We send them another questionnaire. It's called the WOW. How do you take a WOW, a water WOW? And then there is a school kids and something that we're doing with them. Then we try and see how we can have solution providers rated. Because you don't know, when you call, if you are somebody who is living in an apartment or in a factory, you want to see that you put the right solution together, you don't know who to go to. So you have all your filters, your suspicions of any fellow who's coming to you. You don't want to take a decision and so on. Absolutely, Shobit. You install a water meter in a house, it will definitely work. And it will save you money. It'll cost you approximately, I would reckon, about 3,000 rupees to a meter. If you really want to make it happen, if you're an independent home, for instance, it won't make sense for you. But if you're an apartment, it'll make sense for you. But then if you put it and the rest of them in the apartment are not going to do it, it won't happen. I can send you a case study, Shobit, later, where one apartment did it. They're saving today, and 400 crore liters. I'll send you that link if you like. If somebody sort of writes back to us. And how did they do that? These IoT meters make a big difference in that sense. This is it. Then we have this wonderful, commendation awards ceremony. If you are one of those apartments, there are today an overwhelming number of people here and on YouTube. I believe on YouTube just now we are live streaming and we have got another 50, 60 people there. All I can tell you is that if you have done something like this in your place, or if you know of somebody who has done it, nominate that person or the apartment or the building. It could be a commercial building too, could be anything. And we will see how we will at least offer them an award, recognize and reward them for what they have done. Any questions, anything that you all want to ask us?
Somebody is asking the link. Can it be posted on the mail or chat?
Right away, Pallavi, one of you, if you can, okay, I'll put it like this to you. I put that WOW link there. What is that called? The WOW page link, Pallavi, on the. And if you can find that commendation award one before we complete in the next few whatever time, please put that up so that people can copy that and listen to it later. Particularly of that apartment, Girish was the person who had nominated. In the second one, in the second commendation awards, you will find it there. Go on, please.
The next question is, WOW need to come out with a pictorial representation of freshwater supply, generated sewage, treated sewage, fed to trees, increase rains, practice RWH, increase freshwater availability. The question comes from Sitapati Rao.
Yes, Mr. Rao, we need to do that. This, this is something that I think has been brought up in the WOW meetings also. I need resources. Anyone here who will want to, I think Mr. Rao is asking this question not of me. He's saying anybody here in the team, if you can help us do it, we will be very happy and grateful to you all. Any youngster here who wants to sort of talk to us, we will give you the data, somebody who can convert this. We have a few interns working with us, but this is certainly needed. I think you will agree with this, Sripati, that, words don't help us. We need pictures, which can impact us. To go back to what Dr. Pradeep said, we need these very symbolic things that can impact, So maybe, yes. Go on, please. Anybody else? Anything else?
We have some great names who have been participating in this conversation, sir. Dr.
Right.
I will just name a few, and
Yes.
a few of my ex-colleagues are also in this call. And we have our regular visitors to the water talks also in this call right now.
Greetings to all of you.
Aware of Mr. Ramani Iyer, then Indukant Ragade.
Who doesn't know him? Yes.
And regular attendees for these interactions.
Right.
And we have Dr. Pradeep Saxena. I believe he's with the SCGJ Skills Council.
Green Job Skills Council. I know his
jobs.
That's right. Dr. Saxena, we have spoken once before. And, Chris is also an old friend. Niranjan Khatri is also known to me. Yours is a small family of people who I know. Go on, Sripati.
So before, somebody wants to ask a question, my favorite question is like this, sir. And being a green builder, which you are saying that I was doing it for a few years, initial years, and I'm coming out of it and doing something else. So my favorite question is, even when we started our green building movement in say 2002 or 2003,
right?
I would like to take water to that kind of a situation. Water, are we in that kind of a situation that we are still unable to create a movement? We are unable to still create a movement on water. That is my only kind of a question I keep asking me. And somebody, if they have time with me, I will start boring them with this kind of a question. How do you create a movement? How do you think of creating a movement, mass movement? As you said in this, you have done so many forums and within 1 year or say 14 months or something like that. How do we create that kind of a forum? How do we create that kind of a mass movement? And nevertheless, whatever you have been, spearheading this talk, you see more than 100 people who have joined this call. This itself is a big movement that we are able to generate. I believe with this, it should go to bigger, numbers.
Can someone else guide us? What Sripati is saying is very true. Can anyone else speak and give us some idea of how we can take this to larger numbers of people? The message on these 3-4 solutions on water. How do I reach it to say 100,000 people in Bangalore? Flat owners. I'm not talking about managing committees and experts. Anyone, please. Yes, sir. I think Dr. Ragade is wanting to speak. No?
He can
talk. Yeah.
Ragade,
no.
Ragade, he is not able to.
Sorry. Okay, he's not. Mr. Ramalingam is this. Mr. Sankaran Ramalingam, I think he wanted to speak.
Mr. Ram Shankar also could respond.
Okay.
I have not been able to follow the conversation due to disturbances.
Okay.
So I'm not able to comment, but I ultimately feel, self-reliance and flat complexes is very critical. There are complexes where they put every used water, good water, grey water is mixed with poisonous sewage. There's no storage. They treat it in a big STP. They have to get rid of that water. Some of them don't even treat and send it and dump it elsewhere. A simple solution, all these flat owners can use the grey water separately, treat it.
I agree with you.
And STP can be substantially reduced, number one. Number two, in my experience, the concept of an upflow filter, which is a much better solution than STP and septic tank.
Sure.
It requires to be promoted. The upflow
Right.
filter seems to be an unknown entity among sanitary engineers.
No, but that's technical. The question, the simpler question I think our Mr. Sripati is asking is, how do we get 100,000 apartment dwellers, shall we say, or flat owners or tenants or whatever, in say your city, to know how they will earn money back if they put in these 4 or 5 solutions? How do we get to reach them? How do we connect with these people and inform them of it and convince them of it?
In my 15 years of connection with that construction company, I revived the traditional dug well
Right.
in about 140 flat complexes.
Absolutely.
And the traditional dug well, along with rainwater harvesting, introduced
solving it.
substantial
I got
self-reliance.
that.
People
So-
don't even know about it.
Absolutely.
The metro water is least interested.
I agree with you. That is the reason you're here. So this is the choir. We are preaching to the choir. Now, how do we now take this story, Mr. Ramshankar, to another 100,000 apartments which have already been built by builders who are insensitive?
So Dr. Hari, and this
Yes.
question or this voice you heard was from Dr. Ragade.
I'm so sorry. That is Dr.
Chandrakant
Agadi, is it?
Ragade.
Okay. 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 So, Dr. Agadi, tell us.
Builders, in my experience, are least interested.
Okay, that's one way of
And
looking at
another
it.
sad aspect is architects, if they're sensitized to methods of managing water, will make a great difference. We can introduce the systems at the building construction stage itself at practically no cost. But in my experience with the School of Architecture here, a 2-hour presentation, there's not a single question.
Agree.
So
Agree with you.
architects have to be sensitized to the key role they can play.
Okay.
Be it civil
We
engineering graduates.
We had one more question from Mr. Nanak Sandasani,
Yes.
WASH official. Can you spell out your question, sir?
I have some suggestions. So basically, I work with government of Gujarat for 26 years in the Gujarat and Vasmo community initiatives. So what I learned that whatever we want to showcase or we have to have some paradigm shifting thinking. Suppose in earlier days, community was not paying for water, but after Vasmo community initiative, water was community was ready to pay. My point is that for this particularly question, how to create a demand. I am now sitting in the Dungarpur, Rajasthan. I am in the field visit. What I want to know from Dungarpur, Rajasthan, that the president is so inspired by rooftop rainwater harvesting. Now we have made the rule: whoever wants to construct a new building in Dungarpur city, he has to have rooftop water harvesting system. Then the plan will be approved. So this kind of momentum or enabling environment to impress upon the ignite the trade gate. And secondly, what I found as a WASH officer in Rajasthan and in Bihar also I was there. So perception of safe water is a big miss both in communities and at the service provider level. I have seen in Bihar that arsenic treatment was very well working. But when arsenic task force came and they went into the households and they interacted with the community said that we are not using this arsenic treatment plant. So the surprise, it was shocking. They said we consider this as a dead water. We consider this as a dead water because we have the chapakal, so the live water is coming. So you see the gap was that prior to construction or planning, community was not involved. So this was a big miss. Here in Chitredi, I was advocating with this government of the state government, PS, regarding water safety planning. So they say, what is this water safety planning? You have to showcase. So in Dungarpur, in one of the village, we have showcased what we want to preach. So out of 100 household, 60% household where water sample were found unfit, which were fit in the hand pumps. So we showcase the study. So there are so many issues, and you rightly pointed out, nobody is working in the demand side.
And I am really very shocking when the point that drinking water advocacy communication strategy, which was by the demand of by advocacy at the UNICEF level, highest level, it was documented. Document is ready, but there is no rollout system. So we have to work towards all these ideas. This is my humble submission.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Since you worked for so long, Nanakji, in the government,
Yeah.
do you believe that the government can be convinced into moving away from supply side thinking in a way that they will, take to what we are trying to do here? This is job that, good governance is about doing these things, about creating awareness, creating systems, where for example, in the water bill that you and I get, if there are some messages there of the least water consumer in my area or something like that. I'm sure today with IT and such things, these are possible. Why is the government not doing these things? If the government does this, then you and I we will become irrelevant. We don't have to do these meetings. What do you think about that? How do you persuade the government?
100% true. And I am fully with you. With the Gujarat experience of community managed initiative, now it has been scaled up at the JJM level. And Bharat, who is the CEO, now he is spearheading. But what is mismatch? Certainly this mismatch is that whatever is in his heart, in the true spirit, it is not followed at the state level. That is big miss.
Anyone else, please?
I am also trying my best. I am trying my best to convince the state government and the PhD people also to be public health engineers. Means we should have a public health in our motto, in our mindset, and then deliver something.
Where are you located?
We are trying, but it
where
will
are
take
you
time.
located, Directly? Where are you located? Which city are you from?
I am in UNICEF, Rajasthan.
In Rajasthan today, okay. Now, why I asked is, from among many of the leaders here, I want to see if somebody will be able to say, I will want to take some of these issues, form meetings, constantly talk to people and see if the message can be taken to water users, bulk water users, with meetings of this kind, forums of this kind that the World of Water is having. That is, we have more action forums, say in Chennai. Anyone who will want to, in fact, our Mr. Nantama is here. He and I were speaking maybe about 2 weeks ago. And he said, look, I'm willing to give you all the support, but don't ask me to run that. You find me somebody who will do that, and we will give you all whatever that because they're sitting in Chennai, they're sitting at the IIT Madras campus and all that. I said, okay, here is an opportunity. Let us see if we can do. So if there is somebody here from Chennai or from Hyderabad who wants to see, who resonates powerfully, with these directions and wants to work with us, I'll be happy to hear from him or her. Anyone
Dr.
here?
Ramya Dwivedi, who's our ex-colleague, she's asking, talking of movements, why do you think we are not seeing creation of large step wells, temple tanks, etc. as an architectural solution to store huge amounts of fresh water for communities, which is only seen as heritage?
I agree with you. I agree with her. I only say this, somewhere from 1970, we lost it. Very sadly, we lost it in just the last 50 years. And somebody wrote a book recently, I can't remember, I think it was Paul Hawken, who's written this book on, regeneration within this generation or something like that is the title. So we, within this generation, if we can't bring this, when I say this generation, I define it to be the next, say, 30 years. If we can't reverse what we have done, brought us damage in the last 50 years from 1970, there is no hope. There's no redemption for our children and others. So I agree with you that, whether it's temple architecture, whether it's traditional, the architecture of water, forget about the architecture of buildings, the architecture of water in our cities. Take your city, take Chennai, for instance, and the marvelous, intricate system of lakes that you lived on. You didn't, again, have a very large lake around which the city grew, right? And you are 500 years old. But as a city, you manage to maintain all your water bodies. You all know, if you are living in Chennai, from the south of Chennai, you've got 2 large reservoirs. And if they don't fill up with this returning monsoon that you get, by January, there is alarm in Chennai. You know that. And everyone watches, from Jayalalitha to any chief minister is watching the levels of that reservoir to the south of Chennai. So my point is that that network of lakes, the architecture of water was decimated in your city, my city, everywhere. Do I have answers? Like I began this, I have no solutions. I have no answers. I'm looking for more thinking from you all.
Okay. There is another, comment or suggestion from Nandini Elumalai. I don't know
Yes.
who, where is she working? So
Saw that.
the kind of a comment which is leaving here is, I'm no expert, but here is what marketers do to influence people take a desired action,
Yes.
addressing a pain point with a solution and fusing it with a benefit. They would refuse to miss out.
Agree with
It is
you.
again, yeah. So it is again a question of marketing, doing something to sell something, and then go away with it. What is going to happen after that?
Yeah, but then if you look at any big change that has happened in the last, say, from about 1990, I'll say, it's always a market-led intervention. Look at what is happening currently. The shift from, the death of the oil era, meaning, moving away from fossil fuel-based IC engines and all that into electric vehicles. I'm not saying electric vehicles is the best solution, but the point is this whole shift is happening not because of governments. It's happening because of consumers. It's happening because of the market. So market-led intervention has brought big change. Look at solar and the disruption of cost. From 4,20,000 rupees per kilowatt, it has now come down to 40,000 rupees in just the last, say, 15 years, from 2008 or so. Why? It's market-led again. So I don't know, Nandini, the context from which you are talking, but if you want to explain that, we are happy to learn from you.
I think it's a never-ending interaction that will happen when we start talking about water, I believe.
Right.
We are almost at 7:10 now.
Yes.
1 hour 10 minutes that we have started this discussion, and we should say this, that we have started the discussion now. We're not going to end it now. We have started the discussion, and we are going to interact more and more, not only in this forum, but also in many other means. And with all regards to you, Dr. Hariharan, for your excellent insights on your thoughts, on your perspectives about water, the environment, the building, the actions to be taken and all that. It is every time a learning session when we sit with you, sir, on several aspects.
Issues of you.
I don't know. I just want to say that we have just started learning again, and we have started discussing again. We'll have to do an action now. That is what you started with, and we are also, getting into that, saying that we are also trying to act upon all ideas. This is not the how do you say?
Right.
You listen to it and sleep over it. We are trying to add more and more, learn more and more.
Right.
In ICCW, for example, every day there are several new thoughts that are coming, new ideas that are coming. We are flooded with thoughts, I would say. But ultimately, how do we really take this forward? Who's going to help us? Who's going to support us? Whom do we reach out to? What are their ideas? What are their contributions? So it is a never-ending process, never-ending learning.
Right.
You please go ahead.
If we listen to what our Mr. Sripati is saying, like Dr. Ramya is saying now, I see Chandra of Watson talking to Ramya and saying, hey, I'm willing to, sort of collaborate with you. I'm seeing somebody from Hyderabad, Devashree, who's saying, I'm working in these areas of water and water management. What can I do? So what I'm saying to you all is, please connect with Mr. Sripati or with the CEO, Mr. Nandkumar. Please come back to us and say, yes, in our city, we will be willing to see if we can, form a group of first 30, 40 people. We were probably 20 plus people. We grew to about 80, 100 people here as citizen leaders, not as business people. There are no, what do you call them? Like in the industry associations, there are no CII members and such here. We are plain, simple citizens. So if there are people like that among you, and you want to start it, please write back to Mr. Nandkumar. His mail ID will be there somewhere, or to Mr. Sripati. I don't recall. Well, you can see, for instance, Dr. Pradeep's mail ID is showing up for some reason. I don't want you to write to Dr. Pradeep every time. But my point is that, if you do write to somebody like them, we will join you. We will bring you the methodology. I showed you a few touch points and a few things as to how we can form action groups and such things. We will help you with how you set up this, what do you call it, this online infrastructure, having meetings and such things in your city. All of this we will do for you. If there is...
It's been an excellent session, Dr. Hariharan. And for the past 15 days, we were trying to get to this time and learn from you more and more now. And of course, as I said, we have just started. We have just started to think about and doing all that. So let me again, congratulate you from a layman's perspective. I'm a layman in front of you to congratulate you on the work that you have been doing and you have done since the time that we were knowing each other.
Right.
And a lot of many things, a lot of good things have to be done in many more circles, right? Like this.
Right.
This, I think, the starting point for again, long innings to happen.
Yeah. If you don't mind, I think I want to see if Dr. Pradeep has something to say and Ms. Nandkumar.
Because Dr. Pradeep was saying he was not well. So
he's here. I mean, I can see he's here.
His name is there.
It is so, exciting. So although I'm not all that well, I decided to stay back. And I have the following thing to say. I know that it is 7:15 already. I'll take about 3-4 minutes. Wanted to say that Sripati was asking this question, how do you make it a mass movement? And you were also asking this question. And relating to Gandhi, the Dandi movement and all that I was touching upon. While movements of this kind are very important, Dandi happened only in India. Satyagraha happened only in India. Quit India happened only in India, although there were several other countries under imperial rule. Very important to realize the need and bring kind of movement that can be absorbed by that kind of a society. What we do here exactly may not be applicable in another country. Although Gandhi was treated as his teacher by Nelson Mandela. What I wanted to connect was that it is important to build movements of the kind of relevance to the region, like the Temple Tank movement or whatever that was just touched upon. And there are many other things that one can do in the context of the country. Now, what are those movements and how do we connect? I was thinking that you talked about kind of a model with minimum inputs, how much of water can you save and all. This kind of an assessment, if that can be done at an individual level, based on a number of inputs. For example, by using a different soap, you can actually contribute to something, or a different construction material, you can get something, or a different kind of clothing, you can contribute to something, or a different kind of cooking methodology, you can contribute to something, or different cookware, you can contribute to something. 100 things that you can relate, because everything is connected to water ultimately. So if we develop this kind of a large app, so to say, for want of a better word, a mobile digital methodology, at the end, by citizens' action, what Chennai has saved, or country has saved, or whatever. And it is not limited to water saving. As I said, it is also connected to technology. It's also connected to many other things. That is, for example, if you walk a little bit, instead of, let us say, taking a two-wheeler, you do contribute to something. So, and in that analysis, there is much more technology that one can get into and relate that to water in a scientifically validated fashion, not something that you come from, some kind of a thought or imagination. These are validated inputs. As a result, by this movement, we contribute directly to certain quantifiable numbers. And we like to coin some name for it, but at the same time, I think this is where everybody can channelize. A teacher can channelize, a student can channelize, a builder can channelize, a housewife can channelize. So that becomes then the modern day movement, as Sripati was talking about. I would stop here. Thank you.
Oh, nice. Nandkumar, I know I know Sripati will be annoyed, but we must listen to you.
Right. I'll just make a brief point, Dr. Hari. I think it's been a very, very inspiring. Unfortunately, I was traveling and I couldn't connect very much. But to me, what touched my, heart today is that you said 1/3 of us are consuming 200 plus liters per day. And most of the people here are probably belonging to that 1/3. And therefore, I think somewhere this discussion may need to be taken to those slum dwellers and those people who are below 100 liters. And how do we empower them? And can we give the baton to them and say, you guys now tell us what we should do? I don't think we should decide what we should do. We should tell them, because that is democracy, and tell them, look, you tell us, we will listen. Because I think somewhere those who have are not willing to share with those who do not have. Somewhere that's what I'm seeing. And one place where there is homogeneity is the kids, the school children. And I want to take off from those two videos that you played, where at children, between a slum dweller and hopefully there is a homogeneity. So if we can start some campaigns with the schools and get them excited, because they are the future. Unfortunately, unlike energy, water is free. And as long as it remains free, there is no motivation for anybody to save. It's just a, fashion. But those who are suffering and those who are for future, this depends on the way water is being handled today. Probably, they would take a leadership role. We probably should take a step behind and allow them to lead. This is what the radical suggestion I want to make, because beating about the bush at our level, noble thoughts will come, but action is not going to come because it's too late for us to make a difference. I mean, I'm being point blank and saying, the better side of our life is behind us. Maybe the youngsters should take the ball and run, and we just support them. If that is possible, and ICCW can help in reaching out to schools and reaching out to with a campaign and involving the students, the teachers, and putting it part of the curriculum and creating an excitement and some competition. And because this is people are talking about world war for water. People are talking water being the next liquid gold and things like that. How come not enough money is going into investment in training or educating people, creating awareness? Somewhere there seems to be hesitation. This is something you may want to consider, and offline I can take it up with you.
Perfectly, a very sensible idea. I would only say schools and colleges. In fact, I will
Sure.
do one discussion with you, with Usha. Usha is talking to one college, for instance, two universities, private universities in Bangalore, and two colleges. They are IT colleges, colleges of engineering, and so on. There are 100 students of engineering, third year or so, who have told her yesterday or something saying, well, we are available. We want to be volunteers. Please tell us what to do. Now, the challenge before us. We don't know what, we have to recalibrate ourselves to see what they can do for us. So, this equation that you're talking, kids, therefore schools, slums, and, that even better connect that you're asking for. How do we go to the slums people and tell them, look, guys, you tell us what we should do. We are the 200 liters, 40 liters. And they buy water at 3 times the cost, at least in Bangalore, of what I buy. Grossly unfair. And they are 1/3. The guy who comes and delivers the Amazon and some whatever else, as things go, he lives in a slum. Of the 9 people that in the last, let us say, 3 months, who has delivered something like this, I've stopped him and asked him, where do you live? And he will give me an area. He will not say he's living in a slum. I probe him a little. I know he's living in a slum. I spent that extra 3-4 minutes to find out. This is my way of doing a small enumeration. But the point is that these are guys who are invisible infrastructure. Without them, we don't exist. Our drivers, our maids, everybody. Anyway, sorry. Apologies to you, Mr. Sripati. We have overstepped time.
Yeah, we have one question from Chandra. I think Chandra is raising.
Yes, Chandra, please speak.
Watson, Chandra.
Yes, Chandra. You want to speak? You have to unmute and speak. Chandra?
Yeah,
Yes.
you can speak now.
Right.
Able to hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Actually, the point is what some other person here highlighted. Rejuvenating the heritage structures and the temples itself is going to increase the groundwater level by millions and trillions of tons. In Tamil Nadu, on record, because I am also a temple heritage restorer, I can say without record, 1.25 lakh temples are languishing in ruined condition.
Right.
And all the Chola system, where the interconnectivity of water has been happened.
Will you then connect Chandra with this person who wrote about temples,
Has
this
been broken
lady?
because of the modern constructions which have come on the pathway. So if there are
Okay, we will enable this.
notified totally all these buildings and totally thrown out of our system, I think the lakes can be regenerated and water can be brought back to action.
Okay, and now can I ensure that between Mr. Sripati and I, tomorrow we talk to you, we connect you to, I think it was Ms. Ramya who was saying it earlier. Dr. Ramya, you
Dr.
talk
Ramya
about temples,
is our
right?
ex-colleague. We can also speak with her.
Fantastic, wonderful. If you can get the two of them, I can send you coordinates of Chandra or whatever.
Yeah.
And let's see if they are willing to talk. See, this is what it's about.
Yeah, even
That-
Ram
Hari,
Shankar.
quick point.
Yeah, please. May I know who's this?
This is Sam Papu.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, only one thing I want to mention, because like every time, like when we are talking of the water, like the governments and all that, they are spending thousands and lakhs of crores, and only on the water, the digging side or like irrigation side. But the budgets, if you compare like that for the same one on the cleaning of the water, like wastewater, is almost like 0 to 1 or 2%. For example, Telangana government, they have spent more than 1 lakh crores to up pump the whole Godavari river for the irrigation purpose. I think 1 lakh crores or something like that, the world's biggest project. But how much they are spending now only on the wastewater treatment side? It is probably very meager. Or even they were taken the Jal Shakti ministry, because like the governments think that if you are spending that lot on the irrigation side or drinking water side, they'll get the votes, and then that's it. Like they stop at that point. So the citizen awareness has to come. Like, yes, we want like the cleaning of the environment with the wastewater cleaning also. Then only the things will be improved. Otherwise, like we are opening the recycling, the nature's recycling cycle. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sam. It was a good insight. We got some suggestions from Mr. Ram Shankar also, who's been a part of the Rain Center in Chennai, and he's been working with Mr. Dr. Shekhar Raghavan. But I've heard about him. He's the director of Akash Ganga Trust in Chennai. And we have been working with him, Dr. Ragade, Indukant Ragade, and many more people like that. You might have heard about Jayashri Venkateshan also. We have been working with her also on lake restoration, pond restoration, like that. So ICCW, again, as a entity, is an open platform. Just to highlight you that all these are initiatives that could be brought in for next steps, to give directions, to give the support, to get support from people. So ICCW is all available for doing all this. Dr. Hariharan, you are the best judge for putting things in perspective, and you would have a separate call probably in the next coming days on how do we really engage with several people who have joined in this particular session. I would really I'm very humbled by the work which Pallavi, Sala, and Tejasri have done to make this occasion a very, very interactive one, very fruitful discussion, I would say. And thanks to you all, sir, for all the efforts that you have done to make ICCW Water Talks 11 as a good interactive session. And the next few sessions, we should bring in many more people like this to talk about their experience, talk about their perspectives. It should
and we must get the Chennai, water conversation of whatever kind, the wow kind, happen every fortnight, soon enough. With such formidable leaders that you all possess there, I'm deeply grateful for this evening and for you and Ms. Nandkumar inviting me. We must take this forward into more conversations of this kind. If you have stalwarts like Mr. Ram Shankar, Mr. Shekhar Raghavan, Jayashree and others, I mean, we are wasting such talent and energy, I'll say.
So my humble suggestion to the forum now is, let us meet every month, at least once. Physically, virtually, whatever it is possible. Virtually, we'll meet every month and try and understand each other's perspective. And as number of times as we speak about this subject, we are getting some clarity. We are getting some thoughts. We are getting some actions that can flow. That's the reason we are trying to keep this water talks every month, and we are trying to bring in new perspectives. Once again, thank you, Dr. Hariharan, for your time and your insights. We will again connect with you on a separate platform or a separate call.
We will. Absolutely fantastic evening.
How these thoughts could be arranged in a way that we are able to do some justice to the contributions that they have been giving.
Right. Thanks all of you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here today and staying all this long, 1.5 hours now. Grateful to you all, grateful to ICCW for having made this happen. Also to the WOW members who are present here. We will again meet very soon, I'm sure. Thank you, Ms. Nandkumar. Thank you to you also.
Thank you, Dr. Hari. Thank you so much.